What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Devy YouTube channel. I am back. I am healthy. Dealt with a little bit of bronchitis, so I appreciate everybody, all the subs out there hanging with us. Definitely was feeling pretty down and out, but we're back. We're going to be talking about Devy wide receiver tiers. So we're going to be looking at episodes on this channel that I've been trying to do is trying to evaluate how do you evaluate Devy wide receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, all these guys that we're talking about, right? Luther Burden, Xavier Worthy, compared to dynasty assets. And I think that's very tough to do. Now, my last running back video is pretty well received. If you want to go check that out, I think running backs are a little bit difficult. I did this. Now, we had some trolls in the comments like we always do, like, hey, these values don't equal. Not every value is going to equal. That's the thing about Devy that's hard. So we're trying to establish a base. You might not agree, but what I'm trying to do is establish a base for you guys to where you can see, hey, these are where the dynasty assets are getting valued. Now, if you want a more in-depth base, we do this. So we have four of us: Jeff Bell, Christian Williams, Jay Stein. We have combined Dynasty Devy rankings for you to kind of give you that base on our Patreon. It's only $3 a month. You can find it below. But this is a good intro video of, okay, how does this work? Where are these Devy wide receivers valued? And there's a big gaps in our Devy wide receivers right now in terms of where they should be getting valued. So we're going to be taking a look at that in this episode. We're going to go over dynasty tiers. Where are those at? Devy tiers. Where are those at? Players to watch, player values as always. So hang in there, hit that like and subscribe button while the intro is going, and we'll catch you on the other side. All right, let's dive into it. I had to put our guy Marvin Harrison Jr. on the cover. That's just the way this thing goes, right? When we're talking about how that looks. But let's get into it. So where's our tiers, right? So first is tier one. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. And I did have somebody ask me to put the classes in parentheses there. So that's a class he is eligible to be drafted. So you're going to see that. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's a Lamborghini, right? Ready to go out. He's a clear tier one by himself. And for this episode, I kind of tweeted out some things like Marvin Harrison or like, would you rather, right, on your dynasty or Devy roster? And it's pretty interesting where he's getting valued right now. So let's take a look at that. So right now, I did a poll. It had over 4,000 votes. Marvin Harrison Jr. got 68% of the vote over Jalen Waddle. So in terms of where he's getting valued right now, he's getting valued extremely, extremely high, right? So when you're looking at the combined rankings of these guys, like he's basically ahead of Jalen. CeeDee Lamb, I bet you that would be like 50% in terms of where that's at. And then AJ Brown, Chase, and Jefferson, like he's getting value there. And some guys said they would take him third after Chase. So when you're thinking of the dynasty value, that's where he's at right now. So if you want to go out, if you have Marvin Harrison Jr., but you have a contender and get Waddle and maybe 68%, maybe a little plus on that side, that's something to know, right? I'm only showing you these. I'm trying to help you with value of how you can help your roster, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect here, but this is where he's getting valued based on the polls, based on the combined dynasty mocks that I've done. That is where he is getting valued right now. Now, the second tier is where it gets tough. And I'm going to tell you, like, these are going to be rankings all over the place. Where do you rank some of these freshman wide receivers, coming in? For me, Emeka Egbuka is number 2, just based on the analytical profile. He fits all of that. We've talked about that. We've looked at that. 2024 class, Ohio State wide receivers, they just produce in the NFL. They're just fantasy assets, right? Evan Stewart is someone that I like a lot. Now, this might be different for other guys. I think he's just solid. You saw him in the spring game getting targeted, like, all aboard. Please get him out, though, if he's injured. What the hell are you guys doing out there in Aggie land? But again, number 3 for me overall. Xavier Worthy is a tough one. He was a little injured last year. He caught some balls this last spring game. If he can work on those drops, I know his size is a little bit of a concern. He's going to be in this tier. And then Luther Burden's right there too. Luther Burden, Missouri. What is he going to take in place, right? Now, a lot of these guys, generally speaking, are in that same category. Not everyone, right? So when we're thinking of like, when I'm trying to get to understand, like, there's tiers even in the dynasty tiers, but again, your tiers for dynasty might be different than other people's tiers, right? So I'm just trying to give you kind of a overshot. So Terry McLaurin around this range, right? Jordan Addison as well. Like, where would you put Jordan Addison in this tier here? Because we think he's going to get that draft capital. Marquise Brown is right around this. Deebo Samuel could be in here. DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, right? So when we're thinking of where these tiers, so probably top end tiers, you're looking at like Terry McLaurin and Jameson Williams, right? Then bottom tier of this group, you're looking at like, Jerry Jeudy, Michael Pittman, Marquise Brown in that area, right? So when we're thinking tiers of this group, that's generally speaking where you have these guys. Now, where is that tier 3? Tier 3 is, Zachariah Branch, Matthew Golden, Malik Neighbors, and Troy Franklin. So in this tier 3, what we see here is true freshman Zachariah Branch, right? So he looked very good, he played very strong. Play strength is up there. You see that. So this is our first freshman of that freshman class. Matthew Golden is one of those guys that I like from Houston, can be the wide receiver 1. Looks like he's going to have that breakout, playing in the Big 12 this next year, up in competition, right? So when we're seeing that, I like that. Malik Neighbors could be the breakout as long as he doesn't do something stupid off the field like he has been doing. He's in there, and then Troy Franklin. But I will say some people's tiers are going to be a lot different than mine in terms of what they have their Devy wide receivers ranked. They might aggressively rank these freshmen ahead of these guys, right? So that's it. Now I will say that can come and bite you in the ass. Demond DeMoss, like we've seen freshman wide receivers just not produce. That zero wide receiver, that Austin talks about, Devy Dietz, and that could be the case here. So when you're looking at Branch, Golden, Neighbors, and Franklin, these are kind of generally that tier 3 with the upside with Branch, who could be in that tier 1, maybe, right, after his year at USC, or at least that tier 2. Now, where are they getting valued? They're across the board, right? So we're looking at like Christian Watson, Rashad Bateman, Calvin Ridley. You could put Branch in that next tier, right? So like it just depends, because freshman wide receivers are so tough to value. I think that's the case with Devy and in the dynasty format. And when we're thinking of like, where do we value these guys? I think it just really depends on, like, we've seen a lot of guys miss out of the freshman wide receivers. Like, now I think this freshman wide receiver class is really good. I did a breakdown of them, but we've just seen these guys not hit consistently. And so I think that's the toughest part about where do you value in dynasty. I think that Watson area in there, Rashad Bateman. And now I'm a little lower on Watson based on my value. But again, Rashad's in there, Calvin Ridley, but you could easily throw like Quentin Johnston in here as well, Traylon Burks, like those type of guys that haven't quite broke out yet or haven't got drafted yet. And they're Christian Kirk maybe around this range, like Josh Downs, right? Guys that you think are going to get first and second round draft capital, and that's how you project them. So that's kind of how that tier works. Tier 4, you have some potential really big breakouts here. Barry and Brown from Kentucky. We got Jurion Dickey going to Oregon, wide receiver of the freshman class. Mekhi Lemon, another wide receiver in the freshman class. And then Antonio Williams. Will he step up and really, in that offense that he's going to be in, Riley's offense? And how does that look, right? So, Garrett Riley's offense going to Clemson looked a little weird. They need Antonio to step up in that slot, give him that percentage there, give him that kind of guy to go to. So this is that weird breakout area, right? You're really banking on these 26 kids. Hey, can Lemon kind of step up? Can Dickey step up? Where's Barry and Brown at? Can he take that next step up with Devin Leary, right? Antonio Williams, again, in the new offense. Now, where are they getting valued? Probably as your veteran. So if you're like a veteran team, Treylon's in there as well. But if you have Mike Evans and DeAndre Hopkins and you're not competing, like you're looking at the landscape, you're like, man, I'm just not competing right now. Maybe there's a competitor. And this is where you can kind of flip these guys that still have value when Hopkins gets traded, Evans gets traded, to a contender that maybe has one of these freshmen and looking at it. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go win now. And this is where you can kind of get some of those elite freshmen for that. And this is where you test the market. Can I go move a lower tiered veteran like Mike Evans and maybe those areas for that younger kid that may have to wait because of those breakouts, those issues that we see there? Could you move them for that, right? That is, I think, the thing I take away from the wide receiver position. Like, kind of go look and see if the contenders in your league have younger pieces that they may be willing to move to go win now. This might be a deal you make now, but this is a deal that you can make during the middle of the season. So I think that there's some value there, and there's some strategy there to try to grab some of these younger guys, depending on where your roster build is at. Now, tier 5, you look at, I love Jonte Cook. You guys, if you've been following me or on Patreon, Cook's I'm a big fan of him. He's right there, had a really good spring game. And again, I try to be very, very cognitive narrative of spring not meaning anything, and especially because I made fun of Texas defense. But he did look good. McMillan from Arizona looked pretty good. Adam Randall could have that potential breakout. Mario Williams to me is a sell, but he could be in this tier. You're looking at USC. I think they're going to move the ball around a little bit, but if he kind of steps up, we're looking at Marvin Mims and some of these other guys that profile kind of like Mario Williams in this category of like being maybe late first, early second picks. You have to put them in that tier, in my opinion. Now, where's their dynasty value? Mike Williams, Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper. You kind of put them in that category of like unknowns or that rookie category there. But again, it really just depends. Like Jonathan Cook is someone I value pretty highly. Would I move him for Mike Williams? And maybe. It depends on if my roster, maybe in the middle of the year, Mike Williams steps up, maybe Keenan Allen is hurt, right? So like that's why these things are fluid. So like I'm just trying to help you get generally area. Now, if you value Jonte in that tier 3, then go look at the tier 3 guys. Like that's how I would look at this. Look at your values and see, hey, maybe I can go get a better wide receiver piece, or maybe I value him here. Maybe I'll start at this value, see how that works, and then move my way up. Right now, tier 6, you have Bo Collins, Clemson. Bo's in my heart. I love Bo. I think Bo could step up. I'm hoping for a big year. But again, he's a huge question mark. So just know that going into it. Hakeem Williams, 26 class. Jordan Hudson now has entered the transfer portal. So it looks like Hudson's not going to be at TCU. DJ Allen, I still think has value now, especially if Hudson leaves. Hudson has been rumored to go to ASU, which would be a good fit. But this is that generally speaking, again, you're looking at the like, hey, DJ Allen is a very highly rated recruit coming out of high school. Now he's 21, right? He probably teared down a little bit. That's the question mark with those freshman wide receivers. Now, dynasty value right now, probably, when you're thinking of like, hey, where do we look at like these dynasty guys? Keenan Allen, older. What does that look like? Jacoby Myers, Josh Downs. Like that's kind of generally speaking where I would say that value is for this tier here. And then with the last tier here, tier 7, you got Ja'Cory Brooks. Again, excuse me, didn't really step up last year in that spot, but he still has a chance this year. They haven't really gotten anybody in the transfer portal. When you're looking at that, they can maybe kind of be that guy there. They've been flirting with maybe Tyler Van Dyke in the portal right now. Maybe they get an improvement at their quarterback position. Jalen McMillan's on there. J. Michael Sturdivant is a guy that I really, really like, and I think that he can step up for UCLA. And then Dante Thornton is the kid that I think everybody's kind of sleeping on at Tennessee. He's built for it. He's built for that system. I think he could have a very, very potential, a very good breakout season. And then that's what you're looking for from Thornton there, right? In that breakout, hey, year, maybe be a first, second round pick, and you're looking at that. Now, I think Keenan Allen's a good guy to put in both these categories here. Maybe a Darnell Mooney, maybe a Christian Kirk, depending on where you're at. And you could probably move Christian Kirk in that last tier as well, in that category of like, hey, I can get some value out of these guys, and that's kind of how it looks. Now, as far as like tier watch list, so who are some guys out there that you should be watching? Excuse me. Kobe Prentice. I'm a big fan of Kobe Prentice. Like I think Kobe can definitely be in there, be that value guy that you're looking at that could step up for Alabama. If they get a little bit of improvement there. Jalen Hale, I know, has been having a pretty good standout kind of year there. Or camp so far. DeAndre Moore Jr., he had pretty good for Texas as well. Brandon Inniss and Carnell Tate. I know that I didn't put Inniss or Tate in my top 24, and some people are not going to like that. They're going to want him above Cook in those other areas. You can put them in those tiers. I'm going to wait and see how the season plays out. I still like Brandon Inniss. I still like Carnell Tate. I like both those guys, but I'm not one just to jump them in based on the spring game. I know that they're doing well, but we've been bitten too hard. I think in some player, especially with Devy and just analysts in general, like they will use like the spring games because they want to talk about something. And I think you have to be very careful with people that just want to talk about something and pump up content where it's like, hey, we've seen guys in the past in spring games burn us, right? Like we've seen this, and we've seen Ohio State wide receivers disappear. Now, I don't necessarily think Brandon Inniss, Carnell Tate are going to disappear, but I do think that it's okay to, step back a little bit, understand kind of, hey, I'm gonna take a step back and not just value them all the way up, like pump them up in auctions based on that spring game, right? Rome Odunze is one of those guys that I think he's getting a little bit too much love out there from some. Like I don't some have him in the top 12 overall. I don't have him there. He's actually 30th for me overall in my Devy rankings. But that's just based on preference. But I do think, like, when you're looking at it, I like Jalen McMillan. I think they're going to move the ball around a little bit. Like, what is Rome? I wish Rome would have came out this year. Down wide receiver class. Why didn't he come out this year, right? I understand NIL wanted to come back, maybe win a national title or compete for a national title or at least a playoff spot, Pac-12 championship. But again, I think there's some question marks there with those guys. Now, when we're talking about overall, so those are like, just again, I'm trying to help you guys understand. Like, my biggest thing with Devy is trying to you guys figure out, where does my Devy and my dynasty values go? I think that's the question marks. And when we did with running backs, we did with wide receivers, we did with quarterbacks, where are these guys valued right now? And then who are my values out there, right? And where does that kind of look? But again, I like that Barry Brown is out there. I think he's a value right now that you can go kind of establish. Malik Neighbors could be someone that your leagues aren't talking about very much. J. Michael Sturdivant is like a guy that I think can maybe have a very good season at UCLA, especially if Dante Moore starts. And then you're really high on him and he can increase that value, right? And then, hey, as always, we have our Patreon, we have our combined rankings, and if you want rankings, we have them. Like, and I just updated all of them. We have 50 overall, but for each class, basically 25 a class in there. Plus, we have our combined rankings for Dynasty and Devy, $3. That's all it is, plus all the other content that we have for you. The manifesto, which is over 300 pages long, all of that for just $3. Join our Patreon, you have us in there. We're making a push there, but come check us out. If you have any questions, you can DM me, and if you have any Devy or Dynasty questions, just come DM me. All right, we'll get in the Discord and we talk about it all the time. Like, hey, what are you seeing here? So I appreciate you guys. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'll check you guys next time.